Speaking very candidly, outspoken about what he perceives as misjustice against him, his perceived victimhood into all of these investigations swirling around him. In the meantime, we do want to head out to Washington here because we want to play just a little bit of the White House press briefing from earlier. Karine Jean-Pierre taking questions from reporters today in the briefing room. Let's listen.
It's about 1:30, right on time for all of you. Oh boy. Happy Monday. Okay. Today, President Biden released a statement welcoming Finland as NATO's 31st ally. This is a historic day for the NATO alliance, and it comes on the 74th anniversary of NATO's founding. Welcoming Finland to NATO has been a priority for the president. He has been actively engaged throughout this process, hosting Finland's president here at the White House several times. The Senate acted in near record time to advance the ratification process, and Finland's ratification process, which took less than 1 year, is the fastest ratification process in NATO's modern history. We also look forward to welcoming Sweden as a NATO member as soon as possible and encourage Turkey and Hungary to conclude their ratification process without delay. Both Finland and Sweden are strong democracies with highly capable militaries who share our values and vision for the world. As President Biden said, when Putin launched his brutal war of aggression against the people of Ukraine, he thought he could divide Europe and NATO. He was wrong. Today, we are more unified than ever, and we will continue to preserve transatlantic security, defend every inch of NATO territory, and meet any and all challenges we face. Now, to support Ukraine, today, the Biden-Harris administration is announcing 2 critical new packages of security assistance that include significant new air defense capabilities, more ammunition for U.S.-provided HIMARS, and anti-armor and motor systems, as well as rockets, artillery, and tank ammunition that Ukraine is using to defend itself. It is the 35th time the administration has authorized the use of presidential drawdown authorities to send much-needed assistance to Ukraine to meet its immediate battlefield needs. And we are also providing equipment throughout Ukraine's Security Assistance Initiative to help Ukraine with its longer-term security assistance requirements. President Biden's commitment to supporting Ukraine is clear. We will continue to work with our allies and partners around the world to support Ukraine as they defend their democracy and to impose costs on Russia as it continues its unconscionable, unprovoked war of choice. And finally today, as you will see momentarily, President Biden will meet with the President's Council of Advisors on Science and Technology. The meeting will focus on the risks and opportunities that artificial intelligence technologies pose for individuals, society, and national security. The President will discuss the importance of protecting rights and safety to ensure responsible, innovative, and appropriate safeguards. The President believes that tech companies have a responsibility to make sure their products are safe before making them public. And so he will also reiterate his call on Congress to pass bipartisan privacy legislation to protect kids, limit personal data tech companies collect on all of us. With that, Sung-Min, you want to kick us off?
I have 2 topics.
Sure.
I was wondering on the pretty remarkable developments in the Tennessee legislature where Republican lawmakers are moving to expel Democratic lawmakers for their role in gun protests. And I'm wondering if the White House, the president, what the reaction is to these attempts to expel these members. Do they think it's justified, not justified, and everything that's kind of happening in that legislature after the Nashville shootings last week?
So a couple of things. Look, as we know, and you heard me speak to it, you heard the president speak to this, the first lady speak to this last week. What we saw in Nashville, that horrific event of 3 kids and 3 adults essentially being murdered at school, was heart-wrenching and infuriating. Our hearts go out to their families. We understand that it's going to take some time to even move forward from such a tragic loss. Look, as you saw, and I'm sure been reporting, 7,000 students peacefully marched to the Capitol to confront their lawmakers for their failure to keep them safe at school. And what did the Republican legislators do, as you just laid out, Sung-Min? They're trying to expel these 3 Democratic legislators who joined in the protests. And so, look, what we're seeing from Florida to Tennessee in the United States are Republican officials who are doubling down on dangerous bills. that make our school places of work less safe. And so they are, by doing what they're doing with these three Democratic legislators, they're shrugging in the face of yet another tragic school shooting while our kids continue to pay the price. That's what we're seeing every time that we hear one of these tragic events. President has been clear. Too many lives are being ripped apart. Communities are being ripped apart with this gun violence, which is an epidemic in our country. This is why he's taken the actions that he has these first 2 years and continues to have with executive action, historic executive action. And he's going to continue to call on Congress to ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazine, require safe storage of firearms, eliminate gun manufacturers' immunity from liability, and require background checks for all gun sales, and for state officials to take action at the state level. But again, Republican legislators, to your question, want to play politics and not put the
Okay, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre there talking about President Biden's outlines, his wants when it comes to gun reform legislation in the wake, of course, of the Nashville school shooting. As we get more updates on that investigation and what, if anything, will be done at the congressional level or at the White House when it comes to reining in the scourge of gun violence, wreaking havoc across the nation. In the meantime, though, back out live to the White House. They were not really commenting on the Trump arraignment today at all. And so we'll look out to see if President Biden, in any comments throughout the week, offers something, but they were not going to do that there from the White House podium there at the briefing. Also, live now look as well in New York City. And we're about to take for you at the top of the next hour Fox 5 New York's extensive, comprehensive coverage of the Trump arraignment today from all angles, the legal angle, the political angle, the security angle. Of course, former President Trump back there in Mar-a-Lago as you saw his remarks and you watched him comment and respond to what happened to him today. History.
Developing stories right now at 9. The votes are in this election night. Who's the next mayor of Chicago? Our election team has you covered. The storm force is in full force. We're tracking wild rounds of weather tonight and for your morning commute. The big circus in the Big Apple. The former president gets indicted, and tonight he's talking about it. Another shock for Highland Park. The high school goes on lockdown after fears of an active shooter. A fallen firefighter killed in the line of duty. Tonight, an entire department in mourning. And the life-saving Uber ride. The driver who ended up giving his passenger a kidney. Fox 32 News starts now.
Well, it's been a dramatic night for Chicago's historic mayoral election.
Paul Vallas and Brandon Johnson have been neck and neck all night, but now Johnson seems to be stretching for the lead.
That's right. Right now, as we look at the numbers, Brandon Johnson approximately 13,000 votes ahead of Paul Vallas with 95% of the vote reporting.
Yes, and as you can see, those numbers are close, but Brandon Johnson in the lead. The crowd buzzing tonight at Johnson headquarters, of course.
And that's where we find Nate Rogers. Nate, what are you hearing there, my friend?
Oh my God, Corey and Don, I'm trying to hear you all because when I tell you it's electrifying in here, it is indeed full of energy. A lot of people here. Todd is going to show you just everybody that's in the room right now. We're talking about educators, college students, police officers, city council members, other lawmakers, and elected officials. And as one person put it, old-time Chicagoans, they're expecting some 1,800 supporters of Brandon Johnson to enter the room. Johnson, we do know, is at the Marriott Marquis right now. He is about to come down, we're told, and hit the stage possibly within the next 20 or 30 minutes or so. But for over the last 20 minutes or so, we've seen nothing but a lot of folks hugging, crying, screaming. You got to remember, at one time, polls showed Brandon coming in at some 2.3%. And even though the latest polls reflected that Paul Vallas was in the lead by just a small margin, Brandon Johnson told us that he was faithful that he would get to the 5th floor. And so right now we spoke to Alderman Pat Dow, who's here. We spoke to Illinois Attorney General Mayoral, who is here. So many other elected officials entering the room right now to support Brandon Johnson in this historical win, as he is still hoping to declare that victory in just a short time. Again, we're waiting for him to come down to the ballroom here just to greet some of his relatives. We do understand that his wife, of course, is along with him, and his 3 children. His father is here, his pastor, and so many of his other supporters. And really just to talk about the energy that's in the room. I've been going around in between our breaks just talking to people, just to get a sense of who's exactly here. I spoke to one 15-year-old who was here, who's following Johnson, who's been following him along the campaign route. I asked him, what was it about him that interested him? He said, well, his mother, his aunt, and an uncle were all educators. And if you ask Brandon Johnson what was his secret in mobilizing people to the polls, he said it was focusing on young people and progressives. And just by the results that we've seen so far, that appears to have been how he is ahead, if you will. And so that is the latest here at the Mayoral Marquee. Of course, as soon as he comes down to the stage to speak to and greet his supporters, of course, we will let you know. In the South Loop, Nate Rogers, Fox 32, Chicago.
All right, Nate, thank you. An excited crowd at Paul Vallas headquarters, stunned tonight right now.
That's right. Our Dane Placco is there at the Hyatt downtown tonight with the latest reaction. Dane, set the scene for us, sir.
Yeah, it has been a night of waiting and unexpected tension here at Paul Vallas' campaign headquarters. That early lead he had dissolved about 45 minutes after the polls closed. Let's take a look at the room right now. I want to show you what's going on right here. About 300 or 400 supporters filling the ballroom here at the Hyatt Regency downtown. Among them, many of the elected leaders who